Hello and welcome to the fourth annual Odies Awards. I'm Kevin
Wow.
Van Leen, joined alongside Logan Plant. How you doing, Logan?
It's gaming's biggest night,
It
Kevin.
is. It's the award show of record.
It is of record, as we learned on Twitter this week.
Yeah, if you're following us on Twitter,
Yeah,
I did not
some
think
drama.
that a post from a couple of years ago about our Game of the Year pick from 2020 would be getting
Mhm.
traction at all this week, but people are starting to take notice of the Odies Awards, which I think they should. It's a big
Me
deal.
too. hmm there's some fighting going on the internet between Naughty Dog fans and FromSoft fans about which game is more awarded, Last of Us Part 2 or Elden Ring. And then people are like, oh, but they were just counting anything that awarded a Game of the Year award to Last of Us 2. It's like, look at this. And then it's a screenshot of our tweet awarding an award, our OD Game of the Year award to Last of Us Part 2. We were also featured in some list somewhere that
Yeah,
I
there
saw.
was
Yeah.
a award tracker website that kind of lists every single publication for 2020. That page it showed each publication's pick for Game of the Year. We were on there
Yes, we were.
at I think the very bottom of the list, but we were on there.
We made it. Yeah. So, and then someone even said, hey, they haven't announced their pick this year. Let's wait and see what it is. And tonight's the night that you're all going to find out what our
Yep,
pick is.
we are making that pick. Not yet, though. That's
Not
going to
yet.
be a little bit later on in the show. We've got a couple of other categories to get to before we get into the true Odie Award winner for this year. Let's dive right into it. So, starting off, we have to mention some of the games that we played this year that didn't come out this year. You always gotta play some of that backlog in the year. You can't just be playing new stuff. So, we're going to be highlighting a couple of games here that, if they came out this year, maybe would be on the list, but they did not. Logan, what were you playing this year on games that did not come out this year?
Yeah, I have three here, and the first I'll talk about is Luigi's Mansion. I finally played through the original Luigi's Mansion. It was through the 3DS remake, but I had never played Luigi's Mansion before. It was again one of those that I watched my dad playing growing up, but never played myself. And I finally sat down and played it myself, and it is a nice little game. It's very short, very unique. I like a lot of the boss characters. The mansion is very cool. I definitely like Luigi's Mansion 3 more, but I appreciate the original Luigi's Mansion for its very unique vibe and really creative boss characters. And some of the puzzles of you having to figure out how to take down these bosses, they don't really tell you everything. And that I really appreciate. So, yeah, really cool game. And just thinking back to when it first came out, I was really young, so I don't really remember, but just how different it is. Like, it is just such a weird game. Like, oh, take Luigi, he's terrified in this mansion, sucking ghosts into his vacuum. Like, it's just a really cool concept, and it was fun to finally go and play the original.
Always interesting that was the pick to lead off the GameCube with.
Yeah,
But there it
launch
is. It's a
title.
solid time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Luigi's Mansion 3 is kind of that true next step for the series. I think it takes what worked in Luigi's Mansion 1 for the most part and just expands it, because Luigi's Mansion 1 is a rather short but tight experience, and I think Luigi's Mansion 3 kind of expands that scope out a lot further.
And then I did try to play Dark Moon this year as well, but I abandoned that. I really did not enjoy my time with that game. Yeah. Have you played that one? You haven't,
No,
have you?
I bought it on the 3DS buying binge that I think a lot of us went on when we heard that the shop was going down, but I don't have it
Yeah.
with me, so I haven't played it yet. But I have
Yeah,
played
it is
1 and 3,
not very
so
good.
that's what I've heard. I've heard that the mission structure that the game uses does not really work in its favor very well.
They warp you back to the mansion like every 10 minutes, or back to Egad's lab out of the mansion like every 10 minutes. It's just too much. Yeah, but 1 and 3 are both great games. So that's the one I'd put at number 3. At number 2, I would put Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. This came out on Switch, I think, in 2018, so very shortly after the console launched. And I played Hyrule Warriors on Wii U and really liked it, so I didn't ever pick up the Definitive Edition. But there's a ton of new characters that I never got to play that were either DLC for the Wii U version I didn't buy, or included in the 3DS port, Hyrule Warriors Legends, or added to the Definitive Edition. There's a lot of versions of this game. So I picked it up this year. It's getting hard to find, so I saw it used at GameStop and just bought it because it's getting expensive.
Really?
Yeah.
I have not been paying attention to that. Huh.
Yeah. It's like 60, 70. Yeah. It's getting up there for
What does
use.
GameStop
So
have it for?
I got it for I think 50, and I was like, sure, I'll take it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a really great game. It runs at a smooth 60 FPS, which is a very different experience than Age of Calamity. It even runs at that frame rate in split screen. With how much is going on screen, it's really impressive how well it runs. They changed actually a lot of the visuals from the Wii U version. It's a lot brighter, more colorful, and the new characters are just incredibly fun to play as, and really freshened up the game. There's also new Wind Waker maps, which are super cool, new bosses, new items to use. So that was super fun to play through over winter break. And I always kind of thought, I said this on the show before, but I always kind of thought like Age of Calamity was such a step up from the original. But going back to this one, I'm like, oh no, that's a really, really great game that I'd kind of underrated in my head, I think, the last 9 years. Wow, since that originally came out.
Ooh,
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. But I really, really like the Hyrule Warrior series. I hope it gets a third one at some point. That'd be a lot of fun. You got to play a Warriors game, Kevin. I still think you should play Persona 5 Strikers.
I've thought about it.
Yeah, you should still play that.
I got so much else to play.
I know. I made my list.
Yeah.
I made my list earlier this week of everything I would like to play in 2023, and it is really overwhelming.
Just the new stuff, or
no, and old stuff.
Oh God,
old things that I'd like to tackle. Also, I tried to be reasonable. I tried to only put on things that I think I actually will have the hours for. But oh man, it's going to be a lot.
I mean, from when you were listing off games that you wanted to play that were coming out in 2023, I'm surprised you'd have any extra time at all.
Yeah,
play old stuff.
There's really not that much. That anything that's old is like multiplayer, like stuff I want to play with Zach, or it's like stuff I'm trying to beat now, like stuff that just came out last year, like Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy Crisis Core. But yeah, it's going to be a packed year. But yeah, so I'm glad I just squeezed in Hyrule Warriors over the winter break. Played the whole thing split screen. Those games are so much better split screen. They're a lot of fun in multiplayer. When it's like, oh, this keep is falling, you choose who's going to go there. Someone else does something, a different objective. It's a lot of fun when you're kind of coordinating that with another person. And then number one was the first game I played last year was The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. I've long been a Skyward Sword hater, and the HD remaster really turned me around on it, mostly because they cleaned up pretty much everything I didn't like about it. Like they toned down the intro, they toned down how much your assistant talks to you. The motion controls I actually think work very nice on the Switch controllers compared to the Wii remote, which you had to place face down on the table like every 5 minutes to recalibrate. Like just everything about it is just, yeah, gosh, yeah, right, when you have the dongle plugged into it. But everything about it is just a much cleaner experience, and it allows the good stuff underneath to really shine. And yeah, I really like Skyward Sword. It doesn't move up in my Zelda rankings really at all. It's still firmly where it was, but my opinion of it on its own is much higher than it was. And I 100% of that game. I did everything that you can in that game, which I didn't expect, but I did. And it was a really great time. And yeah, it's really quite pretty, actually. The HD version on Switch it looks really, really good. The watercolor kind of art style looks really nice in HD. So yeah, that was a pleasant surprise. I kind of bought it on impulse when it was on sale shortly after it came out, because I was like, wow, this is already on sale for a Nintendo game. It was shocking. So I picked it up, and then yeah, I'm glad I got around to playing it, revisiting it, because it was a lot of fun.
Nice. Looking at my games that didn't come out this year that I got around to playing. So first off, I got to give a shout out to Stardew Valley. I play that thing every single year, but last year was the year that I 100%ed it. I got all the achievements in a single playthrough. There are still a couple of Steam achievements that I haven't gotten yet. The stupid arcade game that I don't think I'm ever going to do because it is brutally hard. But yeah, basically everything else I did, I put in a ton of hours into that playthrough, like over 100 hours. And man, that game is still as good as it was every single other time that I played it. And now is the best time to hop in because all of the content is there. All of those updates, all of that extra content, the post-game stuff is massive, especially for having come out several years after the original game came out. I'm constantly blown away by how much stuff there is to do in that game. And it was fun to finally go back and kind of experience everything that the game had to offer. So
now's the best time to hop in if you're not planning to play anything else this year.
If you got 100 spare hours, if you got a Persona 5 hole there and you don't want to play Persona 5, just stick in Stardew Valley there.
Your favorite game of all time, according to the last Ode to Games ranking we did.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you bumped Yakuza 0 off and you put Stardew up to 1.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I did. I did do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that still stands after
Yeah.
another 100 hours.
What's going to topple Stardew Valley? Anything?
Depends on how good Haunted Chocolatier is, I guess.
Yeah, because you know that after really, really good indie projects, ambitious follow ups always go well.
Ooh, yeah.
Mhm.
Get into that a
Anyways,
little later. Yeah. A little foreshadowing. I also played Captain Toad this year on Logan's recommendation, and it was a really good time. I didn't really play Super Mario 3D World when that was out on Wii U, so I didn't even really play a lot of the Captain Toad moments in that game. But I've since gone back and played those. And, you know, when I saw it out, I kind of wondered if that content could kind of last throughout an entire experience, but it did. It was a really fun time, a nice relaxing puzzler, and I really appreciated the Mario Odyssey levels. I honestly wish there were
yeah,
more
those
of
are cool.
those because there were
Hmm.
only a couple. I kind of thought once you get to a certain point, you kind of unlock the bonus levels. And at the start, I thought that those were the Odyssey levels, and there was only like 2 or 3 of them. Man, if they had done a
Yeah.
couple more of those, it would have been so good because those levels are some of the highlights of the game for me. But it doesn't get to the level of a Mario experience, but I think in its own right, for what the game is, it's really fun, really relaxing. And if you like puzzle games, it's perfect. Really
I
enjoyed it.
like it more than some of the 3D Mario games.
I mean, upon revisit, some of those don't hold up so well.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that game. It's so great. 100%ing it is such a challenge too. Like there's so much
Oh
content
god,
in
yeah,
there.
I gave up on that. There was some stuff
Hmm.
that I'm just like, no thanks. But I did most of the stuff you could, and I had a great time doing it.
Do you do the DLC levels? Like, did you buy the DLC and do those?
Is there
It's like a
DLC
pirate ship.
for the re-release?
Yeah, that
Oh,
wasn't on the Wii U. They made new DLC for the Switch port,
I don't know if I did.
and it's like $5. It's cheap, and there's like 10 levels, and it's really fun. Yeah,
I
you
might
should
have.
check it out.
I'll have to check and
Yeah,
see if I did those. There was a
yeah,
pirate ship level in there. Maybe I did.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because I don't think there's a pirate ship in the
in the base game.
normal game. Yeah, yeah,
Either way, really fun and a lot of content, especially if you're a person that likes checking things off of a list and trying to go for
hmm
100%. There's a lot there for you, extra hidden objectives and all sorts of stuff. So that was a good time. And then Astro's Playroom, one of the few PS5 games that I played when I picked up my PS5. That was the first thing that I did. And man, what a great bite-sized little package that is.
yeah.
Showing off
Absolutely.
the DualSense controller and some of the little things that I don't really care about in most other games, but Astro's Playroom did it really well.
Yeah,
And it just makes me want a fully featured game starring him because that small bite-sized bit is so good that I think that it could be on its own, not in a pack-in title or in a VR title, just kind of its own 3D platforming adventure. And I think it would do a lot to diversify PlayStation's first party lineup because we talk on the show all the time about
hmm
just, Naughty Dog or Naughty Dog-esque games. Insomniac's making the same stuff, and
hmm
God of War is kind of the same thing. I think if you got Astro as first party as a 3D platformer like that, I think that would diversify it a lot. And those games are already so good. I'd put a bunch
yeah.
of stock into whatever they could come up with next.
Astro and Sackboy are like my two favorite PS5 games. They're really good. Yeah,
I still got to play Sackboy.
I love that game so much.
But yeah, Astro's Playroom was a great time. And then I played Horizon and then kind of did not play my PS5 for the
Yeah,
majority of the year. But
my
what are you
cat
going to
really
do?
wants to be part of the Odies. He keeps jumping up here.
Well, he's allowed.
Oh yeah, I just don't want him to choke on my headphone cord. He
Yeah,
keeps wrapping it around his
let's
neck.
not have that happen on the Odies. We don't need that.
That'd be crazy. We'd make headlines. That'd be
Let's not
all the
do that.
drama. All the stories tomorrow morning would be about that.
God. So now we got to get to our biggest surprises and disappointments of the year. As Logan mentioned, we had a very high profile indie follow up that just came out that we have been waiting for a long time. And we were so excited for it that we were thinking that it could be crowned best indie of the year
Yeah.
for us. And we were kind of just waiting for it to come out. And on the show 2 weeks ago, our last show, we all but knew that it was going to be coming out on that final day of that little indie Christmas event that Nintendo was doing. And it was there. And it's Sports Story. And it is one of, if not the most disappointing game of the year for me. I put it down. I played it for a couple of hours, and one, the performance, it just is not great. The game stutters. The game is just slow in a lot of areas. I've gotten
Mhm.
to the fishing area, and I feel like there's a lot more going on in that location because you feel like you're going through mud playing through that area. It's just slow and a little bit jittery going through. I've had a crash. I got stuck in a wall, both within like 5 minutes of each other, which was very weird. But even beyond that, even beyond the performance, they've talked about releasing a patch, and it should be out relatively soon. Beyond the patch, though, there's other problems with this game that I don't think are going to get fixed with a patch, and I think it's just going to be the way the game is. Golf is worse. The other sports that have been added that I've played are average at best. And that's what we were worried about, is that the sports besides golf would just kind of feel like an afterthought. And so far that's held true. But the thing that I was not expecting was that the changes that they made to golf would actively make it worse to
Mhm.
play.
Yeah.
My two biggest things, first off, in the original Golf Story, you could press a button, and then from there you could adjust the distance of the shot on the same club. So you could see how far the furthest distance on that club would give you, and then you could adjust it back if you wanted to, say, do like a half shot to get it closer to the hole. Now it's all on the stick, so you can adjust the distance of the shot as well as the direction of the shot, left and right, and it feels super cumbersome to be going left and right and then accidentally moving the stick a little bit, and then you kind of come in. And you also don't get the level of control as in Golf Story when you know how far the furthest distance is, and then you can adjust from there. It's all just either pull in or pull back out. And another small thing, they seem to have gotten rid of the sound when you get a perfect shot. This is a really nitpicky thing, but it's just kind of, it's a feel thing. And it was already there in Golf Story. And I have to ask why it wasn't there, because there's no feedback as to if you got a perfect shot or not, whether it's perfect power or perfect control. It's just not there. So I don't know. It just feels off. When you get the perfect shot, you're kind of expecting that little, thing to pop up, and it just doesn't. And beyond that, I've had other weird things, unlimited coupons. That was weird. Other little
Mhm.
glitches. Big disappointment for me. And I've since put it down. I'm waiting for the patch. I will play it. I will play it when the patch comes out. I want to at least experience it when it's smooth. But even when I go back, I am not expecting anything to the level of Golf Story, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, it seems like this game had a very troubled development. I mean, it took years and years to come out. It was supposed to come out 2.5 years ago and didn't. And then they were just radio silent on it. And then you probably saw, well, you sent this to me. And then
Mhm.
listeners, you may have seen this room that you have to hack the game to actually discover, that's hidden within Sports Story. And it's the developers of Golf. So it's written from the developers of Sports Story, talking about just how blown out of proportion the development got. It got way too big for its own good. They kept adding ideas and content instead of refining what was there. Yeah, it just seemed like a mess, and it's sad because Golf Story was a very small project from a very small team, and it's brilliant. It's a brilliant game, and Sports Story is just, you can see how this happens, and this isn't the first time, and it won't be the last, that an indie studio makes a big hit and then tries to come out and double it or triple it in scope, and it just they can't replicate it. And yeah, I hope they patch it up so it at least runs better. But what kind of my main takeaway, right? And I've played it for about 3.5 hours, and I'm also putting it down in favor of some other things that I'm trying to get through right now, until this game gets a little bit patched up. And that's that Golf Story was mostly focused on golf, and all the challenges were based on golf. And you could talk to that guy who would like make you do crazy golf challenges in the overworlds. Like, remember him? He had the map,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Oh, try and hit it from here to here," and you would do that. Other little golf mini games, and then when you weren't golfing, it felt like a surprise and a nice little break or change of pace where it's like, oh, wow, now we're going to do this other thing. Now we're going to solve this murder mystery. And it's like, it comes out of nowhere and it's super fun and refreshing and kind of offbeat. Sports Story
sports as well, like with what, frisbee golf, it
Mm-hmm.
kind of plays off of golf as well. So it's kind of that same core concept, but kind of switching it up a little bit when the golf does get, you want something a little bit different that's there for you, but it's not super out of the realm of what's already there.
Yeah, and then Sports Story, it had a hard time living up to Golf Story just because that kind of shock factor is already gone, because that's what we know Golf Story to be, is this mostly golf game with some quirky other elements added in. But Sports Story feels like a checklist to get to the next golfing segment, and then the golf's not very good. It is what it feels like to me so far. It's like, oh, talk to this person, get this key, lower this gate, and it's like more of like an adventure game, but not a very good one. And then the golf is watered down. It does not feel like as much of a focus. Like the first golf course compared to Well-Worn Grove, the first golf course in Golf Story, like I can't remember a single element about it. Like it felt super bland. There were only 7 holes that you do for some reason in the golfing segment. Like, man, the golf just doesn't feel as good. And that is the defining part of Golf Story. The golf is fun to play. Zach and I will still play the multiplayer when I see him. We'll still break out Golf Story. I don't see that happening with this, especially because Golf Story is already there. But yeah, it's a shame, and I do feel bad for the developers. It did not seem like a very good development process, but yeah, it's a pretty disappointing product.
Yeah, and looking back, you can understand now that there were some red flags that were coming up, and they even kind of said in one of the posts, like, the scope of this game has gotten so much bigger, and therefore we need more time. And
yeah,
but I don't know. The radio silence, I kind of took that as it's a small team and they're working on the game rather than hyping it up on Twitter or on social media.
Yeah.
And maybe that was still true. Maybe that is what was happening. But man, looking back on it, it seems like they were just dealing with a whole host of other issues. And because you look back on that Twitter and like, yeah, we have so much more to share you. And we make this joke all the time about Baby Court that they show this off and then they just go radio silent again. And then you see how the state of the game, you see that secret room, and you have to think, man, what was going on there? When they had to announce the delay, they were saying that they were going to be showing off a lot more, and then they just kind of fall off the face of the earth.
And then they just push the game out. Yeah. I don't know who they had over their heads telling them this thing had to come out, but it wasn't ready to. Maybe they just decided we just got to push this thing out the door. It's never going to be what we wanted. It was only $15. Like it wasn't like a huge cost, but it is disappointing. To sprinkle a little bit of positivity on it, I still do like most of the writing. I think that the humor is there. That same spirit from Golf Story is definitely there. Just this really dry, offbeat humor that I really loved in Golf Story is still there. There's still some really funny moments and some things that have made me like laugh out loud, which is very rare in a video game. So some of that's still there. Enough, and because of my love for Golf Story, that I will see it through when it's a little bit patched up. And Zach finished it.
He did.
But
he said the game just ends.
Yeah. And he said that he had to restart a few things, lost some progress. I don't really want to deal with that. So I'll wait until some of those issues are fixed, but I still will play this.
Yeah. And it's not super long, but definitely, if you're a huge fan of Golf Story and didn't pick it up right away, definitely wait for some patches before hopping in, if ever. I will say on the dialogue, I do think that there's still a lot of funny moments, but I have to admit that I have no idea what is happening in the story. The game kind of just drops you in, assuming that you know exactly what's going on. I didn't know what the setup was or where we're at, and I have a hard time following the story beats. Maybe that's because we get to a location and it doesn't feel like there's any driving force to anything. Like I'm just kind of there, and then I do random stuff, and then I do a random round of golf, and then I just leave. Like, I have no idea what's happening in the story. And to be fair, Golf Story didn't have this super strong narrative, but I could at least see what was kind of pushing him forward.
It was just about winning and
just winning, and like his life sucked, and what his girlfriend or his wife left him or something. That was there, and so you at least understood the driving force behind why things were happening. I don't know what's going on or why we're doing anything.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There's not a whole lot in this game that I can point to and be like, yes, this is good. It's either passable or not. The game
Mhm.
looks good enough. Yeah, it looks good. I mean,
Yeah,
Golf
the
Story
art style is way more
looked nice.
ambitious than Golf Story. Like there's like some 3D elements where Golf Story is more top down. I went and played Golf Story for 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, is Golf Story just not as good as I thought it was? I'm like, no, it is. I went back and I played it. I'm like, no,
It's
it
still
is
great.
very good. Yeah, and the art style there is much more, I guess, pixel art based, and this is kind of, yeah, it's a little bit more modern. And to me, it's like, it seems like something that probably took a lot of resources when you could have just kept the same art style and no one really would have minded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seeing some sentiment online, and I think I agree with it. If they had just decided to go with a different sport, but focus completely on that sport, I think they would have been either Golf Story 2, more focus on the golf, or do like a tennis story
We
or
talked about
something
Tennis
like
Story
that.
on this
Like,
show. Yeah.
that would have been a much better setup. I think they don't have to go super far with all of these different sports. They can pick one sport, maybe two, like frisbee golf was for the first game, and
Mhm.
just refine that down to a T like Golf Story was, or double down on golf itself and just kind of make a bigger adventure surrounding those same mechanics. But they just didn't. I can commend them for trying something bigger than that original game was, but it just doesn't work,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
sucks.
It's a shame.
Did you
Yeah.
did you get lucky on the pine cone goal kicking and figure out where the goal was really quickly?
And then you
Uh
can just recover the same pine cone and boot it off the wall 5 times
yeah,
in a row, and
and
then you're
and it's
done.
not even a goal. You're pitting it against a wall. I was really
Yeah.
confused for like 20 seconds. I was running around
Mhm.
like, where is this goal? What am I doing with
Yeah.
these? And then I
There's
kick it
no
against
map,
this
no
wall.
objective markers, no nothing. And so there are times where you're like, okay, is the game broken or do I just not know what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And that's not a good sign in any game ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really confused. There's a section with like what was it? Like a lighthouse or something. And the dude
Dude,
was
what?
sitting there talking over and over about, oh man, the bell is hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
Okay, so all I have to do is hit the
Mhm.
ball off of the bell and then something will fall and things will happen. Because I was also stuck because there's a little section at the top of the map that you have to walk down this little path and it starts the next part of the story. I hadn't done that. I didn't see
Yep.
the little path. So I
I know
was
exactly
stuck
what you're talking about.
and I am wailing off of this light or this bell tower or whatever it is
Uh-huh.
for like 10 minutes. Okay, this isn't going to work. Luckily someone had posted where you're supposed to go online. It was early enough in the game that I was able to figure that out. And then the bell falls in a cutscene. So I'm like, why was the guy even telling me that? Like, I
Yeah.
can't do anything. Yeah, there
Yeah.
are moments in the game that are very cryptic and not in a good way. Like sometimes
Mhm.
being cryptic is a good thing because it makes you think, but sometimes in this game in particular, you're just scratching your head, and at the end, you're like, "Why was that there?"
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm glad that it wasn't just me. I felt like such an idiot when it just kind of fell in the cutscene. Like, oh my god, I just wasted
Yeah.
so much time on
Mhm.
that stupid bell.
Mhm.
Um, and I'd be remiss to mention on my disappointing games of the year, this was the disappointing game of the year until Sports Story came out. Mario Strikers Battle League. Uh, talked about it
I
a couple
like
times
that
on the show.
game.
I've played that game for maybe an hour or two and put it down and have not touched it since. Um, I figured out after buying it that the type of Mario Strikers game that I enjoy is not what that game provides. I much prefer the pick up and play arcadey action of the first game and even the second game. I enjoy the second game for the items that it introduces and just kind of like the zany fun that you can use as a party game. And Battle League is just not that. There's no content either. And another thing that we talked about on the show, I think that the gear completely undermines a lot of the game because you can theoretically make every character the same as any other character, which is also why when they're adding in new characters and they're adding in new stadiums, it's super weird because the characters are basically just a skin. The stats don't mean anything because the gear can just be changed. And the stadiums also mean just about nothing because the way that the camera works, you barely see anything outside of the actual pitch, the actual field. there's just a lot of nothing here. And I can see the really tight and deep gameplay that is there for people that do want to spend the time to learn it and play it online. That's just not the type of player that I am. If there was more content there to push me to learn the mechanics, then maybe I would put more time into it. But there's just not enough there. And I put it down, and I have not ever thought about picking it up since then.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's I have such conflicting feelings about this one because I do like playing it, but the online scene's dead and there's no single player content. So
Yep.
yeah.
It's dead.
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like it. I
And
like the mechanics. I think they're really good. It is really deep, but it isn't if you play someone, yeah, I think Mario Striker should be if I've played 20 hours and you've never played before, we should pick it up and I'll probably win, but you'll have a chance to score some goals and beat me, right? But Battle League, if I played for 20 hours and you never played, I'm going to stomp you. It's not even going to be close. It's going to be like 10-0.
right. And for a certain type of player and a certain type of scene, that works. But I think what I've played of the first two strikers and this one are so fundamentally different for me. And just it's not the type of game that I wanted to play. And it's disappointing. And it seems like that's kind of the case for a lot of people because
Yeah,
most
definitely.
people abandon that thing really quick. And I think there were a lot of people that kind of had similar sentiments at the very least
Hmm.
on the content level. I think most people can agree that it was content bare. And even now with the characters in the stadiums, that really doesn't do anything. So
Yeah.
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 And I'd be remiss to mention Saints Row as well. I didn't play it this year, but I was really excited for it. Came out and it was nothing. It was not good. Performance was terrible. From what I've seen, the characters are painful to listen to a lot of the time, and that it feels like a game that came out right around the time that Saints Row 3 came out, and that's not a compliment. So I'm very
Hmm.
disappointed with that one, so much so that I didn't play it. Yeah.
Dang.
What
What a
were your
sad year. Just kidding.
disappointing
We had a
games?
lot of exciting things still to
There's
talk
a lot
about.
of great stuff, but there were
Yeah.
also some stinkers, as there is in most years.
Yeah.
What do you got for most disappointing game?
Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga was my most disappointing game this year. Besides Sports Story, but that one's tough because it just came out and it's really fresh, and I barely played it. But so what for Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga really bummed me out. It was I talked about this when it came out, but it was just like run everything I hate about like AAA open world games was pasted onto to this Lego Star Wars game. It was like, okay, you just have a waypoint on your map, you run to it, and then you watch the next cutscene, and then you run to the next one. Like all creativity is gone because they really wanted to make this like cinematic, behind the back, third person, open world Star Wars game, but it's the Lego Star Wars game, and there are side objectives to do, but I don't feel like I should have to seek outside objectives to have a good time. And that's what it felt like in this game. The main story was nothing. It took us like an hour per movie. There's 9 movies. So it took like 9 hours to beat this game. And a lot of that is cutscene. Like a significant amount of it is cutscene. And yeah, it was just a bummer. And people were praising this game, loving it. I just didn't see it. It's just not really what I want from a Lego game. What I want from a Lego game is like light combat, light puzzles, level based, linear sections, goofy humor. And this just didn't give it to me. It was a big disappointment because the Lego Star Wars games on GameCube I loved when I was a kid. I think I would still go back and have a better time with those than I did with this shiny new one. And yeah, it was just also the fact that like the new trilogy, 7, 8, and 9, this is the only way that they're in Lego form. 7 has its own game, but then 8 and 9 don't. So like this is it.
This is
They
it,
never
yeah.
got their trilogy equivalent of the other two, which bugs me because it was just so lackluster and just nothing like the other games. Yeah, it was a bummer.
Yeah, when I was seeing things about that and how they were trying to put all of the movies into this one package, I was thinking, wow, this game is going to be super long, super huge because they've already made most of these games already. I kind of thought it was going to be putting all of those together and having feature length games all combined into one. I was kind of like, wow, that how is that going to work? How are they going to get all that
Mm-hmm.
done? I see how they did it by trimming just about everything from
Yeah.
those games and just mushing it up into one
Mm-hmm.
bite-sized piece for each movie. Um, yeah, but I saw a lot of people like it. I don't know. Like,
Yeah. There are segments. It is tough. It is tough because I did keep comparing to the originals, which I've played multiple times each. But there are segments in the original games, like entire gameplay segments, that have been reduced to cutscenes in the new one. Like this isn't a good example because I think this is in the new game, but think like the droid factory in Attack of the Clones, where you're with the droids and Anakin and Padme, and you have to like avoid all the things trying to turn you basically into a battle droid while making your way through the factory on Geonosis. That is an awesome, memorable level from the originals. And there is a very short segment of that in the new ones, but imagine if that was just a cutscene. There's examples I can't even remember anymore where I played with my sister, who I played the originals with growing up, and we're like, we used to actually do this, and now it's just a cutscene. And now, like, probably 30 to 40% of the gameplay in the Skywalker saga is walking at a fixed, slow pace while characters are talking, like you would in God of
Hey,
War
Triple
or
A, yeah.
Horizon or Last of Us, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, really? Yeah, yeah. It's like I guess they want to indoctrinate kids into this format of
Yeah.
game so that they'll play
A
all
lot
the
of those
others.
games out there.
Yeah,
They can move on to the bigger ones after that, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was disappointing. But yeah, I'm in the minority. People love that game, and I just don't get it. But
Which is
that's fine.
also, if you are in the minority on that and then most people love it, then they're probably just going to keep going in that direction, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
Because
It sounds
it
like it was
got
developmental
praised.
hell to make that game. Yeah,
Well, maybe
we'll
not.
see.
Maybe they'll go back.
Yeah, make a Lego Fast and Furious game. I really want that. That would be so awesome.
Would it be better than Rise of Shifter?
Haven't played it. Couldn't tell you. Probably not.
And I don't think you can because it's been delisted.
Shoot.
No chance. No
Those
chance.
physical copies, though. You can track one down.
Let's get a little bit more positive here, talking about our most surprising games of the year. Mine is Pokemon Legends Arceus. Whoa, is that Biomutant? Are you spoiling
It's
maybe
the
the most
Odie.
surprising game?
I think that it gets. I think that this is the
Okay.
first one that gets presented this trophy. Watch
All
the video
right.
version YouTube.
Yeah,
Odie
the
games.
trophies are getting awarded right now. So the
Mhm.
most surprising games of the year, there'll be two of those, one for me, one for Logan. My most surprising game of the year, Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Woo! Yay!
My stock in Pokemon has fallen very dramatically. The last mainline Pokemon game that I really got into was Black and White. Black and White 2, I didn't finish. X and Y, I was very meh on, and then everything after that, to the point where Sword and Shield I didn't even play. And
Good job on
Brilliant
that.
Diamond and Shining Pearl were, every day that goes by, I like those games less every single day. So when Legends Arceus was announced and some of that rough footage was coming out showing some very rough frame rates and kind of ugly areas, it's like, okay, I can appreciate what they're going for here, but I don't know if this thing is going to work. And it comes out, it's got some issues graphically in some areas. It does not look the greatest. It is not a beautiful looking game in a lot of areas, but man, that core gameplay is so good. Going out and catching Pokemon is super satisfying. Just that mechanic makes everything fresh, and it makes every encounter a little bit different because you kind of have to attack things in different ways depending on which ball you want to use. What type of Pokemon is it? Is it aggressive or is it docile? Is it going to completely run away and it's going to disappear? Is it going to attack you and then you can lose health yourself before you throw Pokemon out for it? And just wandering around this area and catching Pokemon, which is one of the main tenets of a Pokemon game, is really fun. Just going out and catching all these different Pokemon. I love going into the town and gathering all these quests to do. The story is interesting. It's the most fun I've had with a Pokemon game since Black and White. And I was not expecting that in any way, shape, or form. But that core gameplay is so solid. And I really hope that they have a Legends Arceus 2 or some other game that takes the flag of this one and keeps carrying it forward, because I can see it getting even bigger than this. But what's here is so much fun and so addicting. And I think what Pokemon should be. I think that this is the game that I feel like a lot of Pokemon fans have been talking about for a while. And the game that we saw those random weird mock-ups over the years of just like, oh, this is
Yeah.
the next gen Pokemon game. Like, this is it. Going out into the world and catching all these different Pokemon. The battle system and how it uses the what is it, the strong style and the speed style,
Agile. Yeah.
agile style, like that
Mhm.
adds a different level of depth, being able to see the turn order and trying to like, parse things out, be like, okay, how many do I need to hit here? Because they can hit hard. You can get annihilated really quick. So that you actually do need to have some sort of strategy to get the most hits off, or, take a Pokemon out before it can one shot you. Cause that happens a lot. The boss fights were fun. It was a strong game all around. And then I didn't play Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah.
But Legends
It's
Arceus
good.
really caught me by surprise because I did not have the highest of hopes before that game came out. And that core gameplay really surprised me. It kept me invested for quite some time.
Yeah. I'll wait to talk about Legends Arceus because it may come up again. It
Yeah,
may. We'll see.
it could
We'll
be
see.
somewhere on
But
here.
yeah. All right. I'm here to present the Odie for my most surprising game of 2022, and it goes to Sonic Frontiers.
Ooh,
Yeah. We
Sonic
sat on this
Frontiers.
show and talked about Sonic Frontiers literally every week until August when I said I've seen enough. I'm done. I don't want to see any more of this game. And I think the theme that kind of dominated throughout those conversations was, is this going to be any good? And I was leaning towards this is going to be a train wreck, is kind of what I thought the entire time, because it's like, oh man, they're focusing on open exploration and combat, and open exploration, something they've never really done, and combat they've never done well. And I was just, Forces was bad, and short Lost World was a confused mess. And I'm like, what is this going to be? And what it is my favorite Sonic game of all time, which I never would have guessed going in. And it's something where I was kind of like, okay, as the months pass, am I gonna go lukewarm on this game a little bit? We're 2 months out, and I am as high on it as ever. I was playing it 2 days ago, just still clearing more of the map, and I'm like, yeah, this game is everything I want in a Sonic game as a first step. There's improvements to be made in a sequel, but it sounds like they're going to stick with this direction. The Sonic community loves it. I love it, and yeah, it is. It just shocked me at how much I liked it, and I think since I'll be talking about Sonic Frontiers more later too, I'll stick to kind of the narrative of it. It surprised me. My most surprising game. What surprised me the most was the combat, because it's really fun, and there's not too many encounters like there are in Sonic Unleashed where you're like, oh my god, another combat. It's used just enough, and the boss fights are varied and fun, and the Sonic's moves that you unlock on the skill tree are cool and feel powerful, and feel like they fit in with a Sonic game. And I was just really happy with the combat. It's broken, but I love it. When you can just infinitely counter is hilarious. But yeah, it stunned me how much I liked this game, and I couldn't believe it, and still can't really believe it. It's like Sports Story. I was like, it's going to be great. When's it going to be here? And then it wasn't so great when it finally got here. Sonic Frontiers, I was like, we know it's coming this year, but oh man, it's not going to be good. And then, yeah, it blew me away. I put 30 hours into that game. Usually, if you're at the 30-hour mark in a Sonic game, there's a problem because it's too long.
Because you have to
But
play 4 stories to get through to the
yeah,
end, and most of those
yeah.
stories aren't very fun.
Yeah, but this is a Sonic game that I put dozens of hours into and still want more of, and that is something you can't really say about the rest of the series.
They're doing
Yeah.
post-launch content as well,
Oh,
right?
I
So
can't
there will
wait.
be
I
more stuff.
can't wait. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Have they released any patches yet to fix some of the things, or have they talked about that at all? I haven't been keeping up
Um,
on Sonic Frontier stuff.
I don't really know. The kind of the issues are just Sonic jank that I don't really people see.
You can't patch
When
those
you
out.
scroll
They're
through
always
your
going to be
Twitter
there.
and see like the janky issues, that's people clipping out the very small moments when that stuff happens. To me, that's just part of a 3D Sonic game. Like, yeah,
But we
it's
talked on this
yeah.
show about some of the broken parts of the
Oh
game.
yeah, some of the economy. I don't think they're gonna fix that. I think it's just like that, and I hope they
It's a
fix it for the
feature.
next game. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot about it that's absolutely broken. Oh, but they did fix the thing where there was that icon on the map that wouldn't go away. They fixed
that's
that. It's
good.
gone now. So
That's good.
yeah, some of those little things they have fixed. Some of like the pop-in is still terrible. The jank is still there, but some of those minor things have gotten fixed. Yeah.
Proof of concept.
Yes.
That's what this
Yes.
is.
Honestly, our two games are very similar. Like games that reinvented their
Yeah.
franchise in a way that, like, a franchise we're jaded on, that really have some work to do, but are really promising. Like very similar games, I think, from this year.
Right, where that core gameplay is so good that if they can just clean up some of the rough edges around that, you could get
Yeah.
something stellar out of it.
Yeah.
Now the question is if they're going to do that. Pokemon, if they're going to go back to it at all, and Sonic, what is that next game going to be like?
You never know. You never ever
they
know.
could just go right into the trash can again, like, completely fall apart.
I really hope that they see through the Sonic negativity that will always be there from people who aren't even really fans, and see how well this game sold. It's like the fastest selling Sonic game since like Adventure 2. Like, it sold like crazy for a Sonic game, and how much Sonic fans love it. I haven't really run into a Sonic fan that doesn't love this game. So, yeah, I hope they stick with it. They got to stick with the format because it's a winner.
I'm planning on playing it sometime this year.
Yeah, do it. Do it.
I hope. Okay, now we're getting into the heavy hitters. Our top 5 games of the year.
Top 6, it looks like.
Well, I didn't delete that. I won't talk about the 6th game. Our top 5 games of the year, me and Logan have a list of 5 that will eventually get narrowed down into the show's game of the year, but we've each got our own pick here. So why don't we start it off? Number 5, Logan, what do you have? Have you decided on this number 5 spot? I know you just finished a game recently that could have moved things around a little bit. Have you decided on that number 5 slot?
I have, but I need to cheat and give my honorable mention. No trophy, but my honorable mention to Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring's a phenomenal game. I finished it this week. I finally beat it. It took almost a year.
Perfect timing, right before the show.
Mm-hmm. And it was so cool. Just some of the locations in that game are just stunning. It is absolutely gorgeous. Zach helped me retool my character, and I actually got a lot better at it after I kind of reallocated my levels, and that totally changed things for me. He did still carry me through the game, though. I fought most of the bosses with him, but by the end, after I kind of retooled, I was going in and I wasn't just cowering in the corner while he took care of the boss. I was helping. I was contributing. We did it together, and it was a ton of fun. And for the last 2 bosses that were super brutal, we even brought a 3rd person in, one of Zach's friends that has the game. So it was a super fun multiplayer time and just a gorgeous world. I just love how it looks, and it's staying as my honorable mention though, because while I appreciate the game, think it's amazing, it's just not one that really fits with me very much. So I'm keeping it as my number 6, but I'm really glad I played it. I'm glad that I picked it up last year and got to experience it, because the open world nature of it is just awesome. Honestly, if I bet there's like some mod out there that like you on PC that you can just make it easier and then just explore the world. And I'm sure that's antithetical to the point of the game, but I would do that because it's just super fun to run around that world. But my number 5, the Odie for Logan's 5th favorite game of 2022. Are we
giving Odies out for that?
No, I'll save it for number 1. No Odie. Pokemon Legends Arceus. Kevin just talked about it. I have pretty much the same stuff to say about it, especially after playing Scarlet and then going back to Arceus a little bit. I just like it so much more. Not only is it a return to form for the series, I think it's legitimately my favorite Pokemon game of all time. I don't think that there's I don't like Legends at Arceus as much as I liked like Platinum or Sapphire when I was a kid. But if I were gonna pick a game to play now, I'm picking Arceus over all of them. And it's not even really a contest for me. So when it comes to like which do I like more overall, that's tough because very different times of my life. But Legends Arceus, I just think is brilliant. I think its gameplay loop is amazing. Takes a lot of cues from Monster Hunter, which of course I dig, with the different areas going back to the home base, retooling, going back out. Really like that. I love the Pokemon in the overworld. I love that you choose when to start a random encounter with them by throwing a Pokeball. If you run into them, they just do damage to you, like you were saying. That's a great change that Scarlet really emphasized how great of a change that is in Arceus, because you just slam into a Pokemon. It's like, oh, battle starts, halt everything. So that's really great. I actually like the art direction. It's not always pretty, but compared to Scarlet, it looks gorgeous, like we talked about when Scarlet came out. Yeah, it's just awesome. Sinnoh's always been one of my favorite regions, so having a dex that is very Sinnoh heavy, I really enjoy also.
It takes place in a ancient Sinnoh as well, so it kind of has those vibes as well.
Yeah, so I love everything about it, and I still haven't finished it. I'm gonna go back and finish it. But yeah, I just got carried away with a lot of other stuff last year, but really like it. And you talked about like the feedback of hitting a perfect shot in Golf Story. I feel that way about Arceus. When you strike a Pokemon in the back with a Pokeball and it makes that loud sound effect and that quick rumble in your controller, it's just super satisfying. Yeah,
Oh
and the
yeah,
little
it feels so
firework
good.
pop when you
Yeah.
catch it. It's great. It makes you want to just
Yep.
catch everything.
Those little feel things, they don't seem huge in the grand scheme of things, but man, they can just be so satisfying, and it would
Yeah,
feel off if they're not there.
yeah,
Like you just feel
definitely.
so good about yourself when, especially if you're throwing the Pokeball from really far away, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna hit it, and then you get that
Hmm.
sense, oh yeah, there we go,
Yep.
oh, nailed it.
Yeah. A great game. I really hope the Legend series continues because I think it is so much better for me than the main series at this point in time.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
they keep along with it. If you gave an honorable mention, I'll toss mine out as well. Horizon Forbidden West. The game is gorgeous. I think that the world that they've crafted and the mechs and the monsters, the robots that you fight are as good as they've been. I think that's the best part of Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West is that just that combat and some of those kind of larger than life encounters against these super huge robot animals, which were super fun and super satisfying to take down. But I think back to Horizon Zero Dawn and its story, which kept me playing through to the end. That was a major driving force of the game for me, was to kind of see where that story went. I thought it was interesting all the way through to the end, and then even beyond as to like what was going to come next. And I don't feel like Forbidden West nailed that as much as Zero Dawn did for me. The main driving story beats were interesting enough, but I felt like it kind of fell apart at a little bit at the end for me. And I honestly don't know where they're going to be going with it, because they're going to be making more of
Hmm.
these. They set it up for another one,
Yeah.
but at the end of Zero Dawn, I was really excited for what was going to come next in that story, because I enjoyed Zero Dawn's story so much. And at the end of Forbidden West, I did not have that feeling. I was kind of like, okay, that was interesting. More so just curiosity of like, what are they gonna do after this?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I still really like the combat and those encounters, and the world is absolutely gorgeous, but it just wasn't as strong as Zero Dawn for me.
Yeah. You know, I don't like that game.
Yeah.
I will not be playing the third one.
My
No.
number 5, fifth best game of the year was Live Alive. Now, this game kind of fell apart at the end for me,
Yeah.
but I don't want to. I don't want that to overshadow it too much, because it was kind of that last area, and the rest of the game was so good. All of these different little stories that take place in completely different times with the same mechanics, but also a completely different vibe. In one, you're sneaking through an imperial Japanese castle from hundreds of years ago, and another one, you're present day doing kind of like a punch out Street Fighter style, just going through all of these combat encounters. You have future with uh, alien style encounters, kind of taking a lot of cues from those movies. Like, all of these different areas are completely different, using the same mechanics but creating a different experience each time. I had fun with basically every single little section of this game as you're working towards the end, and even to the second to last area where they kind of set up the final area. I thought was brilliant. I was not expecting the twist that they pulled that set up what you had to do at the very end, but I was not expecting it to go that way. I kind of thought that was it. I kind of thought that this last area was going to be the capper of the story. And up until that last area, I thought it was really clever how they kind of pulled the rug out from under you with how you thought the story was going to go. And end bit notwithstanding, I think 90% of that game is super solid. And even if you don't finish it all the way, I think if you like old school JRPGs and like the HD 2D style, you'd be remiss not to play this game, because those individual stories, you don't have to play it as part of a larger narrative. You can play those by themselves, and they'll still provide a really cool experience, and an experience that you'd be hard pressed to find anywhere else. I feel like it's a very unique game in that way.
Yeah, it would be in my top 10. There are a lot of games I liked this year. So yeah, that would be in my top 10. I really liked Live Alive, but yeah, the ending is just, that's kind of what knocked it down here. It didn't quite make it because it's just a bit
It's
of a slog, but
Yeah.
cool concept. Also, just glad this thing exists and came out this year. Really cool remake of a game that was never localized before.
Always cool to see those games get resurrected after decades of not being able to play them. Number 4. Now, Logan, what do you got?
Number 4 is, I'm making a last minute change.
Whoa, rewrite.
I'm flipping the next 2. Yeah, my number 4 is Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Okay.
I haven't finished this game yet, which is why I just bumped it down. Because the top 3 have put a significant number of hours into. Xenoblade 3, I'm like 35 hours in, which is pretty significant.
It's a full game in a lot of instances.
Yeah, I adore this game. It's my long history with the Xenoblade franchise has been chronicled on this show, trying to get into it, failing to each time. I took a flyer again on Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and I am so glad that I did. I just love how this game comes together. I really, really like the characters. I like the main 2 characters specifically a lot, Noah and Mio. I really, really like both of them. I think that the story setup is super interesting. I love that it's a 100-hour JRPG that gets off to a fast start. Like, it opens up pretty quick. Like, you don't have to meander around the village for like 6 hours before you do anything. Like, it gets going. It hits the ground running pretty fast. The story is super fascinating to me, and only getting more and more fascinating as we go.
There's still a lot of stuff that you have not seen yet that is wild.
I'm very excited to get to that point. I like the combat actually a lot. I like the mixing and matching the combos from your right buttons and your D-pad on the left, and timing those together to get the more power and where you position yourself on the monster. I just think it's all very cool, and it works for me. The world is gorgeous. The music is amazing. I love this game. I love it so much, to the point where I want to play the other ones. Now that I like this, I think that I have an understanding of the series and can maybe go backwards now. We'll see. But even if that doesn't end up happening, I think this game is really, really good. And for me, has like, finally I've checked it off. This big Nintendo series. I like pretty much every series Nintendo makes, and I was never able to get into this one, and now I am. And that was a big victory for me this year. Amazing game.
That's a great series.
Yeah.
And I'll be talking about Xenoblade a little bit later. But I think it is the pinnacle of the series in basically every way.
Except that you can't unlock classes if you're too high leveled.
Nope. And it sucks. It's really annoying. Anyways, my number 4 is one that I was really excited for. It's a little indie title, Bear and Breakfast. The core gameplay loop of Bear and Breakfast is so strong that despite the fact that the game, unfortunately, ran like garbage and continues to run like garbage. The PC version got a patch maybe a week or 2 ago, and the Switch version is set to get a patch at the start of this year, sometime probably in January, I would hope. Hopefully it'll fix a lot of those issues, despite the fact that I experienced crashes constantly and a lot of frame rate stutters and all of that. I still saw this game through basically to the end. And every time the game crashed, I hopped right back in and kept on playing that core loop of slowly unlocking all of these different areas to build your bed and breakfast, slowly unlocking all the different rooms to make each of these areas more complex, and all of the little features that it slowly gives you keeps on pushing you forward and keeps on having you build more and more and more, because you want to see what comes next, and you want to see how much more diverse and interesting these buildings can get, and how all of that works together to kind of create this ecosystem within the buildings. I'm really hoping that the patch comes out soon, because in its current state, I just can't recommend it for a lot of people, because it does have so many issues, and I had a game-breaking issue at the end. But man, once that patch comes out where the crashes are fixed and the frame rate is cleaned up, I'd recommend it to most people. It's a charming world, charming characters, really pretty to look at. But above all, I think that gameplay loop of building all these rooms, inviting more people in, slowly gathering money to progress forward and keep unlocking more stuff is so strong. I think a lot of people could have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I'd still like to play it at some point. Not this year. It's at
Not
least
this year. Well,
it's at
you
least
can wait
back
for all the
ordered till
patches.
2024. Yeah.
And maybe there'll be some new
Crazy.
content as well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Bear and Breakfast. Different from Sports Story in the sense that Sports Story has performance issues and the core gameplay is not very good. Bear and Breakfast has a lot of performance issues, but I think that the core gameplay is really strong. And what excites me is that most of the problems of Bear and Breakfast can be fixed in patches,
Mhm.
as compared to more gameplay centric problems that can't as easily be fixed. But yeah, I was glad that that one mostly lived up to the hype because I was excited for it for a while, and it had some delays and it's had some issues, but I still had a great time with it.
Very
Number
cool.
3.
I just flipped this one with Xenoblade. It deserved number 3. Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. I never really know how to place expansions, I think is why I struggled and had this one down at 4 initially. But it is so much content. Like, I've played it for like 70 hours. That's more than you play most new games. So I ended up putting it here. And wow, Sunbreak is so good. It might just be the best Monster Hunter that Zach and I have played between World, Iceborne, Rise, and Sunbreak. Sunbreak is so good. It fixes a lot of the problems that we had with Base Rise, like the Rampage, which is not fun. It's just gone. It adds my favorite map in the series. I think the Citadel is just super cool. I love the design of the monsters. The 3 main ones that are based on Dracula and Frankenstein and a werewolf are very, very cool. I really like some of the other ones they've added. Yeah, it's just great. The gameplay loop is awesome. There's a lot of really difficult fights, which is something Rise really lacked. Like, there's hard stuff in this game. Yeah, we're still playing it. Super fun, super good. Um, awesome expansion to Rise that at the very least puts it toe to toe with World and Iceborne. Like, because it's always like, oh man, the glory days of Iceborne are gone, and then this came along, and it's like it's back, and it's phenomenal. And yeah, I think the only thing that might hold it back is the post-launch support hasn't been as good as Iceborne's. The monsters they've been adding are mostly reskins, where Iceborne was like a brand new monster every month, and now it's like, here's the gold version of this. I'm like, yeah, I know how to
Pink
fight
Gold
that
Peach
already.
is here.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but really awesome, and yeah, excited for Wild Hearts next month, and then next gen Monster Hunter hopefully soon after that. Yeah.
What to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. Too many hours to look forward to, though. Too many hours in these games.
My number 3 is Kirby and the Forgotten Land, one of the few Kirby games that I have played. They moved to a 3D platforming adventure as compared to 2D games that Kirby has been living in besides Kirby Air Ride, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they pulled it off as well as they could within the confines of what a Kirby game is. It's not as open as some people may have wanted, but I don't after playing it, I don't think I really needed that. I think
Yeah.
that the style of game that it is, where it's kind of a Super Mario 3D world or 3D land type of deal, where you're kind of going through these areas, there's little side things that you can do, little extra paths that'll get you items and things, and you have different objectives that you could do throughout the level are there, but it is kind of linear start to finish, going towards the goal. But yeah, I thought that the power-ups that were there were really cool. I enjoyed being able to upgrade each one, and it was always fun to be able to see what is next, because it's not just like, oh, this upgrade means that it does more damage. The upgrades to the different copy abilities fundamentally change how those copy abilities work. It's completely
Yeah.
different, and it was always fun to see kind of how that next iteration of this power up turned into, and how that all worked. I enjoyed having to search for all the Waddle Dees in each of the levels. If you want, you can just blast through to the end, but it's always fun to do the little side things and kind of explore each nook and cranny of the levels to find all the different Waddle Dees. I enjoyed the mouthful mode a lot. Some of them are kind of throwaway, but I thought that they were funny for what they were. You know, when you just have to kind of like pull something off a wall and then it falls and then it's over. Like, yeah, it's dumb, but I thought that there was enough there with, you know, the car and the hang glider and what the circular gear or whatever that was for the
Mm-hmm.
boat sections. I thought that there were enough in the mouthful mode, uh, enough like actual mechanics in most of them, that some of the throwaway funny ones I didn't really mind so much. The cone as well had some interesting moments. Um, Hey, it was just a fun romp through. The post game was fun as well, and being able
Still
to
haven't
build
finished
up
that.
Waddle Dee Town. I always enjoy when you can kind of build up a section or kind of see something from the start, and then as you play, it slowly builds up, and there's more things to do, which this game has. Yeah, I thought it was a really solid time, and this is what I want from Kirby moving forward. There's not enough really strong 3D platformers out there, and I think that they made the transition to 3D after decades of 2D about as well as they could have.
Yeah, this game also would have been in my top 10. I didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to. I really, really liked it, but I think describing it as the 3D land of Kirby is great. Now I'm waiting for Kirby and the Forgotten World, kind of the follow up that just makes it bigger, more copy abilities because there's only I think 10. And I told you my main complaint with it is that I feel like there's nothing really new in the second half of the game, which to me is a core. It's a requirement for a platformer that you continue to kind of spice things up. And yes, the locales changed, but you had seen every copy ability and every mouthful mode after the first two worlds. There was nothing new except for the big finale one, which I won't spoil, but there
Just
was
fun.
nothing
Yeah.
new in level gameplay for like the back 60% of the game. And so I think it's a great game. I still really, really enjoyed it, but I would look forward to just kind of maybe a more well-paced distribution of copy abilities and mouthful mode power-ups and maybe just a few more of them too. Yeah, but I still really
Could be
liked
more
it.
to build off of for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great first step into 3D. Absolutely. I really, really enjoyed that game.
Yeah. Number 2, we're getting down to it. Top 2.
We are. Number 2 is Splatoon 3. Oh, this game makes me so happy. It is one where I was like, does this need to exist? We talked about that leading up to its launch. I was like, what's going to be here that makes this kind of like, I have Splatoon 2 on Switch. It's still active. I could play that. And the second Splatoon 3 came out, any chance of me ever playing Splatoon 2 again pretty much went out the window. Like, it is just like, you talk about addressing things that need to be fixed in like something like Legends Arceus. Moving forward, what are they going to change to make it better? Splatoon 3 is the realization of that for the Splatoon franchise. They took everything annoying from the first two games and just fixed it. Like, literally everything is better than it used to be. You can skip the opening idol intro. You can join up with friends before hopping into a match. They removed the hourly limit from Salmon Run. Salmon Run's available 24/7 now, which is great. There's a lobby to practice in while you're waiting, so you're not just staring at the matchmaking screen, which is super fun and makes it way more inviting to jump into another match. Like, just everything in this game is fixed, and it is like, it's just the perfect Splatoon. And it has content, and that is something that amazes me. Like, you look at something like Halo Infinite that launches with nothing at launch multiplayer wise, and Splatoon 3 is like, here are a dozen maps and 4 modes, and here's the date when you're getting more. And then they delivered 2 more maps and another ranked mode when they said they would. And there's a catalog system which encourages you to play every day. It's just like the most premium multiplayer package I feel like I've ever seen at launch. It's just unbelievable. And I feel like not enough people are talking about it. Like, how feature rich this game is compared to, because the games you would compare it to aren't on Switch, and Splatoon isn't on these other platforms. It's like, when you compare it to like hardcore shooters and like the content those launch with, this just dwarfs it. Like, it is just the most robust multiplayer offering I've ever seen. And there's a whole single player campaign too, which is very good. And a card game I haven't even touched. And I played this game for 65 hours. Like, yeah, it's amazing. It is kind of reminded me how much I love Splatoon, because I was like, I like Splatoon, but now I'm like, wow, I love Splatoon, like on the level of like Mario Kart or Smash Brothers. Like, I love playing it that much. The gameplay loop is so much fun for me. And yeah, this game just is the best one. And I'm really glad it exists. And after months of doubting if it needed to, it blew me away.
Yeah, not too many people are talking about it. I'm sure that there are a bunch of people that are, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that in Japan it was a huge sales success. I don't know
Yeah.
about in the West if it did as well. Maybe there's a fair amount of people like me that played Splatoon 2 and had fun with it, but didn't feel the need to pick up 3. But yeah, the game came out. It was very well received. People liked it a lot, but I don't know. I was expecting a little bit more of a splash from it. Maybe it doesn't need to be that way though. I don't know.
Splatoon has sold over 8 million worldwide and 5 million in Japan. So 3 million outside, that's still a lot, but
good.
it's not. Yeah, it's very good. But 5
5
million
million in
in
Japan
Japan,
is
absolutely
insanity. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome game. Next new Splatfest this weekend. Yeah, so I'll be jumping into that.
What are the categories?
It is what kind of food is your favorite, and it's spicy, sweet, and sour.
What are you going with?
I think I'm going team spicy.
Team spicy. That's a good
Yeah,
pick. I'd
team
probably go with that as
spicy.
well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like sour a lot, but spicy is just like you don't have sour things that often. It's like candy or like lemonade or like there's not
I
many
feel like
sour things.
besides candy, if it's sour, it's probably not a good thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going with spicy just because like there's even spicy candy that's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very
Spicy is the right pick,
very,
I think.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'll be hopping into that.
My number 2 is one that we talked about before. Pokemon Legends Arceus. I won't spend too much more time on it because I talked about it a lot, but it's the most fun I've had in Pokemon in years. It has rocketed up to probably in my top 3 Pokemon games. I think Heart Gold, Soul
Platinum?
Silver, Platinum, and this game are kind of my trifecta of top tier Pokemon games. And you're right. You look back at some of those games and there is a heavy amount of nostalgia. The amount of times that I played through Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and Platinum are crazy, and I would never do that again. Like, you would play through that 5 or 6 times just because why not? I got the time for it. And that time has passed. I can't discount it completely because I had so much fun with those, but Pokemon Legends Arceus is what I want from Pokemon moving forward. I think that this proved that these mechanics work. There's more that they can do. I think that they can do more with battles. There are battles in this game and they are really fun. I think that they could do even more with it because the battles that are here are fun, but there's not a ton of them. I think that more could be introduced to use the agile style and the strong style that they've introduced, and give more opportunities
Double
for
battles.
Make it
double battles.
Oh God, that'd be wild. That'd be a mess with the with the turn order of everything. But that could be interesting. I think it all comes down to that core gameplay of the feel of going out into these worlds and catching the Pokemon. It makes me feel so much closer to the Pokemon that I have captured because it felt like I really went out there into this world, found them, and then had to catch them myself. Like, it all feels like me. There's no random encounters. I went out there, I found them, I caught them, I add them to my team. Oh, I didn't even mention the fact that which seems to be a new thing in Pokemon as well, just generally, but the concept of being able to introduce moves at any time that Pokemon Legends Arceus first came up with is such a nice feature. You don't have to delete moves anymore. You can just add new moves as they come and completely change their move set at any particular time. What a great feature. I love that. I just want to see more. I'm really excited and hopeful that they're going to keep up with this Legends Arceus style of gameplay because what is here is so good.
Absolutely. All right, number 1.
Number 1, let's do it. What is your number 1 game?
Does this get an Odie? This gets an Odie.
This gets an Odie. That it does.
Trophies up. The Odie for my game of the year, Logan's game of the year 2022, Sonic Frontiers, of course.
Woo! Sonic Frontiers, congratulations.
Congrats. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
Talked about this game so much recently, but I just love it. It's just like, when you play Sonic, it's always like, man, this could be good. It could be so good. And Sonic Frontiers is so good. And it's just like, man, some of these other games on my list may be better. Like Splatoon 3, Monster Hunter, Xenoblade. They're like better games than Sonic. But Sonic, like, I don't know about you, Kev, but as I've gotten older, it's just harder for me to be like drawn into a game and just lose the hours where the clock just flies and you look at your phone and like an hour has passed. Or like you're like, I'm going to go to bed. And then you just do one more thing. And that turns into 90 minutes. Like, that is really for me. And Sonic Frontiers is the only game this year that did that to me, where it was like, yeah, I'm going to sit down and play for 20 minutes. And then like 2 hours fly by. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to stop. I had other things to do. And that's a great feeling. It just kind of recaptures some of the joys of gaming from childhood that that aren't always necessarily there as much in adulthood, and that was just a super cool thing for me. And it being Sonic, which has been one of my favorite series since I was in like, gosh, second grade, like just was just super special game for me this year. And yeah, I'm gonna play it again next year probably. I'm gonna play all the extra content. We'll play it as Sonic Club when we get together. Yeah, it just feels great to have a Sonic game that people like that people aren't just
Yeah.
arguing about all the time. Like people like this game, and it's just been positive and exciting. And last year was such a great year for Sonic, and the movie was great, and the comics were great, and I've heard Sonic Prime is great. I still haven't watched it, and it's
Yeah, I
just
forgot
like,
about that.
man, Sonic's actually in a good place right now, and you got to enjoy it while it lasts because you never know when it could go away again. Yeah, Sonic Frontiers game of the year, and my 10th favorite game of all time, which is crazy.
High praise.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, after all the buildup on this show, when we were talking about it every single week, all the different rumors and weird stuff that was coming up about it, and then you see some of that initial footage and like, oh God, what is this? And then more comes out, like, okay, maybe this could be good. And knowing Sonic's past and knowing that not a lot of it is very good, it's got to feel extra satisfying that it actually came out and was good with everything that's going against it in Sonic's history and even what we've seen over the last year of pre-release footage of just like, man, what is this going to be? And it comes out and it's actually a fun experience.
Yep. Oh, I can't wait for the DLC. It has more playable characters, which doesn't excite me. Like, it's always crap whenever you're anybody that's not Sonic, but there is going to be, I think, another island or more challenges on the islands that exist. So, yeah, there's going to be reasons to go back.
Logan's number one game of the year.
How about you?
It's the Odie. My Odie game of the year for 2022 is a game that I have not finished, but I have also put in well over 60 hours into this thing.
Wow, you're far.
And that is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I was talking about it a little bit before. We've talked about it before as well. Logan has talked about it some on this show, on this episode. It is the best that Xenoblade has been in basically every single area. The weird things that you didn't think were weird in the past games, but now you play it here, like the gems and how you had to craft each individual gem with individual characters, and now you can just kind of craft the one gem. Everyone can use it. Stuff like that. Just little things that you didn't really think about in the previous Xenoblade games that are here now. And I have a hard time thinking of going back to that old system. It's still there and it's still playable, but those types of changes that they have made are just better than it was before. I like all of the characters, the side quests. When people talked about this game and those side quests and how you need to play a lot of these side quests, I didn't know how much stock to put into it. The side quests are usually pretty good, but Xenoblade also has some side quests that are just kind of nonsense, like fetch quests, garbage. Like Xenoblade games have had that in the past, but I do think that it's very true and that you should play at the very least all of the hero quests as well as some of the just normal quests as well. A lot of these quests matter and have story and content in there that's not just, oh, get me 10 of these items. Thank you. Here's money, or here's this item. Like there's substance to a lot of these quests, which is so great and is something that in a 100+ hour game, I feel like is super hard to nail because there is so much content to do, but they have the importance of some of these hero quests still really surprises me. Like something that I would think is a main story beat that should probably be as part of this main story in some way, shape, or form is just a hero quest that you could decide not to do. You could just ignore it and move on if you wanted to, but it is there. It is a way to flesh out all of the characters in your party, as well as other people that you haven't met yet or people that they know previously. It's brilliant. And then you get something out of that. You get a new hero, or you get to level up the main cast hero ranks beyond level 10. Like you get something for it beyond just the story content. The story itself is really good. I don't want to spoil a lot of it. But that initial concept is really interesting, and I think they do some really cool things with it. Again, I haven't finished it, so I haven't seen how it ends yet, but some of the twists and turns that have come along the way with certain reveals and things happening and the way that the story goes has been super fun and always pushes me to continue on to the next section. It's always kind of hard because I want to go do these hero quests because they're always super interesting and I get new heroes and new ways to play, but I also want to do the main story because I want to see what happens there. It is the most content rich in terms of fun content that a Xenoblade game has ever had. The game looks great. Music's fantastic. I cannot recommend Xenoblade Chronicles 3 enough. And I haven't even finished it. And I've put in 60 hours into it. It's so good.
It's cool how much we're both enjoying it when I've never played the series before and you've played them all. Like it's cool that like it is accessible to newcomers in that way. And then for you who's played them all, you're like, yeah, it's the best version of everything. Like that's a pretty cool thing for a game to pull off.
Yeah, for a game like this that can be hard for people to get into. I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 does a really great job of that. And the fact that it's basically standalone from the rest of the games means that if you haven't played the previous games, you can hop in. And you're not really, as far as I know, you're not really going to be missing a whole lot. And you'll still get a really fun time out of it. If you like JRPGs in any way, shape, or form, and you haven't played it yet, you've got to play Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Yes.
And now we have come to the final categories for
the big ones.
Not the game of the year yet. We've got a couple of categories to get to before we get to the final game of the year. Let's start it off with the Odie for the best soundtrack of the year. Why don't we talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 some more?
Okay, Odie,
man,
yeah.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3, best music of 2022. It's so good. You talked about it some. The overworld themes, the battle themes,
the boss themes,
are
so hype all the time.
Yes, when certain songs play for either the special enemies out on the overworld or like story boss encounters, things get super hype. It's so good. And Xenoblade has always had that, but man, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has some banger tracks in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love it. And there's some quieter songs that I really, really like. Like I've gotten a little bit emotional at this game already a couple times and I'm only 35 hours in. Like there's still so much left to go. And the music, it plays a big part in that. Just that's really, really good. Yeah, and I really like the flutes that the two Offseers play and how there's a lot of flute kind of in a lot of the overworld melodies that kind of play into that motif. It's just really cool.
Oh my gosh. They made those.
Yeah,
those were created by them. Those flutes didn't exist before. That sound, that specific sound, they created that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Which I feel like you have to give them the award for that just because of that by itself.
I will give a shout out to Sonic Frontiers soundtrack, which is very, very good. It has really cool. It's actually honestly similar. It has really cool like ambient overworld music, and then really, really hype tracks, and then really good vocal tracks too, like Sonic usually delivers. But I agree that and the volume of Xenoblade, it's like its soundtrack is like over 15 times as long as the other ones that were nominated at the Game Awards.
It's crazy.
Like there's so much music there. That's all really, really good.
You got to fill in the 100+ hours that you're going to be playing this thing, and I haven't really gotten sick of any of them. Even the regular battle theme is fine. Like I hear it all the time and it's not bothering me at all.
Yeah.
Moving on to art direction, the Odie goes to Elden Ring. You want to talk about Elden Ring's art direction, Logan?
Yeah, I feel like it's the main thing I talk about every time. I think this is one of my favorite looking games I've ever played. It's my favorite thing about Elden Ring. It is just so gorgeous, and the color palette is just like really striking to me. Like a lot of like golden hues and like dark gray combined with like golden rays of sunlight peeking through these clouds. Some of the areas you go to are just gorgeous. Like stepping out of the cathedral into Limgrave for the first time is just like, wow, it just looks amazing. And it's not the highest fidelity looking game like God of War or Horizon, but just they just do so much with the direction they picked. The enemies are like, they just all look amazing. Like from the biggest bosses to the littlest grunts you fight in the dungeons, they just all look absolutely amazing. The whole world, like the regions look so different from each other, but it all fits together and it's believable that this is the same continent this is all happening in. Like, wow, I just love how this game looks. And it was why it was worth seeing through to the end to me, even though the gameplay didn't click with me as much. Like I just wanted to see all the places because it's just that cool looking. And One of the locations, the capital city that you make it to about halfway through the game, it is just beautiful. It's like all these like domes and castles like that are topped with gold that just look amazing. And there's like this giant frozen unanimated dragon just like perched in the middle of it. It's just, oh my gosh, it is just such a gorgeous game, but in a very dark way. It just really, really works for me.
Makes me sad that I'm probably never going to play it because, like you, the gameplay does not vibe with me. But from what I've seen of the world, it looks expansive and absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Easy winner for me. It was definitely the best looking game I played this year. And I'm glad it got something in our awards show because it needed to be represented somehow.
It's one of the biggest games of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to indie, I was really hoping that this was going to be Sports Story, but that came out and was not it. Bear and Breakfast gets the award, the Odie, for best indie game. It's got performance issues, but like I was talking about before, that gameplay loop is so strong. It's beautiful to look at in its own way, just a really cute art style. I love all the characters. And yeah, I can't say too much more about it, just beyond the fact that if you're at all into management style games or building games of any kind, once that patch comes out, you got to hit up Bear and Breakfast because it is a really fun time.
Shout out to Tunic, which was probably our runner-up for this. I just didn't play enough of it to fight for it since you finished that, and I didn't play enough of Tunic yet. And then Chained Echoes is a game we both want to play, but didn't.
And that came out in December. That would have been kind of hard because
there's
it's not a super long JRPG, but there's a 40-hour experience that you'd have to cram into that last month. Yeah, Chained Echoes, if we had the time to play it, if that came out in June or July, that probably could have been our indie game of the year. It's always hard with those. And with games coming out in December, you don't know what to do with them. We were waiting on Sports Story for that reason. And, that didn't come together.
Nope.
This is the last one before we get to the true game of the year. This is the Odie for best multiplayer game. I feel like it's pretty obvious.
Me too.
Splatoon 3 gets the award.
Oh yeah, not much more to say on this except that it's just I just every time I play Splatoon, I'm just like, man, Turf War is just such a genius concept. Just like not about killing, but about painting the most ground and the strategies that come at play because of that. It's just so cool. It's just such a cool series. It's a series that I love it for what it is, but I'm ready for them to make a spin-off or something like that for. I've been saying that on the show all year. Like, I'm ready for Nintendo to grow this series even more and be like, hey, here's this little side spin-off Splatoon game while you wait for Splatoon 4, because I just really, really love how it feels, the mechanics, everything about it. So, yep, great multiplayer. They fixed all the issues that really let just
stupid, weird things. I'm glad that those are all gone because they made no sense in Splatoon 2.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they understood that those were issues and that they needed to be fixed and not just a feature.
It is just, they have polished it all up to let the just brilliant multiplayer underneath shine. And that's great. It's, outstanding.
It is time to crown the Odie Game of the Year for 2020.
This game will be joining Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Judgment, Last of Us Part 2, and Great Ace Attorney Chronicles as our picks for Game of the Year.
Some very
what a good set
titles.
Of games. Yeah.
And the game that will be added to that pantheon of high-quality games, the Odie Game of the Year for 2022 goes to Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Whoa.
There it is.
There
a game that me and Logan have not finished yet.
No.
We have combined to put in nearly 100 hours.
100 hours. Yeah.
And there's still a lot to go. We have talked about it a lot. It has come up at several different points in this episode, so we don't need to spend too much time on it. But I think the best endorsement that I can give for it is the fact that this is the best that Xenoblade has ever been. And I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 are fantastic games. But Xenoblade Chronicles 3, with the features that it cleans up from the previous game, plus the new features that it adds in, makes it the best overall experience that you can have. The heroes are a much better version of the blades in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 had the gacha system that I wasn't really a big fan of. You could just get these throwaway characters that didn't mean anything, and you would kind of just get them. There wasn't a whole lot behind them. You kind of just got them from these cores. Whereas here with the heroes, not only do they provide a different way to play and being able to swap to them and experience a completely different style of combat, but they have both the hero quest to attain them, and some of them have quests beyond that expands kind of their story. I think that rounds out what is already a really good package with that story. And the Xenoblade Chronicles games have had those in the past, but I think the heroes, the gameplay that they provide, as well as the quests that they give as well, kind of rounds that experience all out to create the best Xenoblade Chronicles game that there is.
I think it's one of the best games on Switch. I really do. I think that um, when you look at the two best Switch games, in my opinion, that came out this year were Splatoon and Xenoblade. And Pokemon Legends is right there. It just isn't quite as polished as those two games, but you can even throw it in there. And you look at those three games, and I already feel like 2022 is going to be looked at as a really underrated year for Switch. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people say, oh, there wasn't much to do on Switch this year. I'm like, yeah, there wasn't a Mario or a Zelda, but look at what we got. They were amazing games between Pokemon, Splatoon, and Xenoblade. And yeah, I look at the other years across the Switch's catalog, and this one's a really strong one because of these exclusives. And then things we didn't talk about, like Fire Emblem Warriors was a great game. Sparks of Hope looks like a great game that we haven't gotten around to. Even Nintendo Switch Sports, I had a lot of fun with. Kirby was a really good game too. It's like, man, it was a really nice year for Switch. Live Alive is there. Like, there's a lot of games on Switch this year that were very good. And we're seeing rumors saying, hey, Zelda could be kind of the swan song for this thing. I'll believe it when I see it, but I do believe it. I think that we're probably going to get new hardware in early 2024. So maybe not quite the swan song. Hopefully there's a big fall game this year on Switch.
That's just dead.
Yeah. But yeah, it was Switch just keeps going. It was a really strong year, especially coming out of the pandemic. Finally, the content releases started to pick up again, and we got some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at the Switch kind of finishing off its life, I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is kind of a game that pushes the Switch to its limits. And sometimes you can see those limits a little bit. Sometimes, there's some pop-in. I've had a couple of crashes. It's got some issues. You can tell that they're pushing the Switch out, but I think that also they're getting out as much as the Switch can provide. And the fact that they can make that is really impressive. The breadth of this world and everything that you can do in it constantly surprises me that they can run this thing on the Switch with minimal issues. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. I really like 2022. I think that I look at my top 5 and what didn't make it in there, and I'm like, yeah, I played a lot of really cool games. I had a ton of fun playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. It wasn't even considered for my top 5 because it was kind of just like a junk food game, but I loved it. It was so much fun. Nintendo Switch Sports, I really liked. Fire Emblem, I really liked. And then the top 5 games with Legends Arceus, Xenoblade, Rise, Sunbreak, Splatoon, and Sonic. It's like, wow, those are 5 games that will stick with me. Like in 20 years, I'll be like, yes, I fondly remember all of these. Yeah, it was a really solid year.
Yeah. And if you're talking about Switch and you look at our list, each of our top 5s, 9 of the 10 are played on Switch / exclusive. The only one that's not is Sonic Frontiers.
Yeah, which is on Switch. Don't play it there.
And our honorable mentions, Horizon and Elden Ring. Yes, those are other consoles, but Switch is 9 of the 10 of the spots.
Yeah, it was a fun year on Switch. Yeah. This year looks crazy though. This is the year. 2023 is the year where the PS5 is finally going to get its due. I feel it. I just look at what I'm looking forward to coming out, and a lot of it is on PlayStation. So I'm looking forward to booting on my PS5 a lot more this year.
Yeah, now it seems like cross-gen games are few and far between now. It seems like Sony is, especially with Horizon's DLC going PS5 only, I feel like that's kind of the signal that we are moving straight towards just PS5, basically always moving forward. And that really excites me for what they can put out that doesn't have to also play on PS4, that is just PS5. I'm really excited for some of these games that are coming out.
Yeah.
Coming out next year. This year. It's this year.
This year.
Because we recorded this late.
Yep, we did.
Congratulations to all of our winners. Congratulations to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 as the Odie Game of the Year for 2020.
Deserving.
Yeah.
It's well deserving. I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, a longtime fan's favorite in the series, and the one that finally got me into it. Like, that proves like most people will like this game that like JRPGs. Like, it is really strong. I need to finish it before I can start to have this conversation. But I'm like, wow, do I like this as much as like Dragon Quest 11? Like, do I think it's that good? Like, I think it's really in that same tier for me of just like an amazing, expansive, modern JRPG. Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it after
Yeah.
the struggle to get you in. I know you tried with a couple of different points and it didn't click for you. I'm glad that it finally did.
Yeah.
I'm glad that Xenoblade 3 could pull you in.
The only problem now is finding the hours to play it.
That is an issue. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm almost double the hours that you are into it, and I have a lot to go still. So
yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap up? Put a bow on 2022 here.
It was a fun year. We did a great show all year. Rumor Roundup was a ton of fun. Sports Story was kind of a bummer way for the year to end. That was a little bit of a sour note to go out on, but this year's going to be big. This year's going to be huge. I am already thinking about it, and it's like, man, the stuff that's coming out this year is like sequels to things that were all like my game of the year or dang close to it the year that they came out. And it's just like, man, it's going to be a crazy year.
2023 should be a really good time.
What's going to win game of the year? What's going to win game of the year next year?
No, I know what your game of the year is going to be. Unless something absolutely wild happens. I think I could take a wild guess and
I think you could too. The only thing that I think could give Tears of the Kingdom a run for its money is what Final Fantasy VII Rebirth ends up being. Because I loved how that first one ended. The story really stuck with me. The ways that they are shaking up that series. And if this one goes in that direction and just makes it crazy, but in a good way, that one I could see, but probably not.
That'd be crazy. Not. That game would have to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Either that or Tears of the Kingdom would somehow have to be some sort of disappointment.
Honestly, it has. If it doesn't have dungeons, I'll be a little bit disappointed. If it doesn't have traditional Zelda dungeons, I will be slightly disappointed in that game and could see it still getting like second or third. But yeah, I could see something else swiping the top spot. And I know what yours is going to be too. You're so predictable. I know it's going to be the game that's coming out next month. It is every freaking year a Yakuza game comes out. It's your number one.
What if it's Gaiden?
Oh, it's also.
I don't think it's going to be Gaiden.
Okay.
I think Ishin will. We'll probably.
The game looks cool. The game looks really cool.
For it. Yeah. That's going to do it for us for the Odies Game of the Year Award show for 2022. The show of record, the true Game of the Year in 2022 is Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Mark it, people on Twitter who really cared about our 2020 award this
tracker.
Week.
Put it on the award tracker for 2022. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Ode to Games, the Odies. That is the award show of record.
It is.
It matters.
The only one that matters.
That's why we're at the bottom of the list. Because we got to,
best for last.
Matter. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for us on this week's episode of Ode to Games. We're here on Thursdays or Fridays, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube at Ode to Games for the video version every single week. We're on Twitter at Ode to Games. You can check out that interesting discussion that was going on there. That's on Twitter at Ode to Games. You can send an email to odetogamescast@gmail.com. For Logan, I'm Kevin. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.